In this tutorial, I am going to show you how to use my existing ponytail scrub cap pattern and add ribbons to it instead of using self-ties. If you prefer self-ties, then go ahead and follow the link in the description section for that video. If you like the scrub cap but just don't have the time to put it together, you can go ahead and follow the link on the top right corner to my Etsy shop. I sell this very same style along with other scrub caps in various different fabrics, and you can get this style with either the ribbon, which is what I'm showing you here, or with the self ties like in my other video. Now for this current project, what you will need aside from a sewing machine and scissors is a little bit less than half a yard of quilting cotton and matching thread. You'll also need a 1-inch ribbon. I'm using a grosgrain ribbon for this project. You're going to need about 42 inches of that ribbon. You're also going to need a safety pin so that you can thread the ribbon through the hole in the back of the cap. If you're not new to sewing and understand patterns and fabric direction, or if you're familiar with my patterns already, where to find them in the description section, how to download them and put them together, then you can go ahead and follow the timestamp that I've included below and skip around to the sections that you want to watch. Okay, let's get started. The pattern pieces that you will need for this scrub cap are available for free in the description section of this video. If you follow the link, it will take you to a Google Drive folder that contains 3 PDFs. You'll find the headband, the side, and the top. And notice that they are in pieces, and we're going to cut them out and piece them together. Now, I did mention that these are available for free. I actually stumbled upon a seller on Etsy that took some of my pattern pieces and made acrylic templates out of them and is selling them, which makes me very sad. I've tried to contact them several times and they have stopped replying to my emails. I've even contacted Etsy's legal department and that was of no help. So if you guys have any ideas on how I can get them to take down their listings, please leave your suggestions in the comment section. Now, once you print out the pattern pieces, it's time to cut around them. Now notice that I have given you some overlap. So this ties is the same as that one. Same with the top. The words here are the same as this one. And then the same thing with this word. That S is that one. All right, so I've cut them all up and it's time to put them together. I grabbed some tape and I'm gonna line up my tie. I give you a grid on my pattern pieces that are lines that are a 1/2 inch apart. Make sure that when you print it out, you take a ruler and quickly measure that to just double check that your printer has not resized your pattern. Also, I give you little numbers at the bottom so that you can more easily line it up. And lastly, and very importantly, I put notches on my pattern pieces. Notches are these little triangles. When you're cutting your fabric, you want to make sure that you indicate either by cutting into your fabric or cutting out the little triangle. You want to indicate those points because that's where the pattern pieces will match up. So you want to make sure that they are all lining up. In my other patterns, I simply tell you to cut a piece of fabric that's about 2.5 inches high, the whole width of your fabric, which in most cases, if you're using quilted cotton, it's 42 inches. But in this case, because we are doing a different style that has a ribbon as opposed to a self fabric tie, the headband actually matches your ponytail side. So you see that these two are the same size. So do go ahead and print out this pattern piece instead of just cutting a strip of fabric. This is your cap top and these notches will line up. You have this one here, and this will line up here. This two will line up here, and this lines up at the end. Notice that at the back I gave you 2 notches because this is an oval. You might forget which one's the top and which one's the bottom of your top. So this is the front and this is the back. For this scrub cap, I've chosen a 2-directional fabric and I want to show you what that means before we go on. It means that the motifs, the flowers or whatever objects are printed on my fabric go both up and down. So no matter how you look at the fabric, it still looks okay. So I can turn it this way and the motifs are still working. However, if you choose a fabric that has motifs going all in one direction, for example, this one, you see that the bushes or the shrubs are all going up. So if you were to turn the fabric, now they all look like they're upside down. Or I have this one here, which has little blocks. Again, see here it looks upside down, so you would want to wear it like this. And the same thing with this one. This one is a baseball one, and all the words are going up, the people are going up. So if you were to cut your fabric like this, it would look upside down, or if you would cut it sideways, it looks sideways. So make sure that you follow the arrows if your fabric is one directional, like these examples I have shown to you. Now, I initially had this pattern piece printed out with the arrow this way, but I have since corrected that, so this is no good. When you download the files, you will see that the arrow is actually going this way, this being your top notch and this being the bottom of your cap top. In my case, it doesn't really matter which way I place them. Now, there is a difference between placing your pattern piece this way versus this way if you want to save on fabric, because there's a bit more stretch side to side from selvage to selvage than there is this way. But with quilted cotton, it's so minimal that if you do want to save on fabric, you can place your pattern piece on cross grain as opposed to this way. Now, I have already included a 1/4 inch seam allowance in all of my pattern pieces. There's one here, and there's actually one as well here that I didn't indicate, but I will fix that on the PDFs when you go to download them. And this one too has them as well. All 3 pieces are cut on the fold, which means that you're going to fold your fabric. So let's say that this is the fold of my fabric there. I haven't quite lined it up, but if I were to cut, I would put this on the fold here and cut this way. Same with this. Make sure that it's full. It's going to be twice as long. And as far as this one as well, if I was cutting, I'm going to line this up on the fold of my fabric and cut this way. All right, let's cut our fabric. If you're not used to cutting fabric or a little hesitant, be sure to pin your pattern pieces down before you cut. A quick way to line up your fabric without having to worry about it being even or crooked is to look at your pattern. So I can look at the little motifs, so like 3 white flowers that are not showing up here. So now I know that my fabric is crooked. So I can line it up. So there's the 3 flowers and there they are again. Okay, if your repeat is small enough, then you can do that easily. And again, here's the flower repeating again. So that's a good way to line it up side to side. If there is anything that you want a tutorial for that you just can't seem to find, even if it's not related to scrub caps, if it's a simple project that you wish you knew how to do but haven't figured out how, then go ahead and leave me a message on the comment section below. I read everything that you guys post, and I will do my best to try to put something together to help you out with that project. So I've cut out my 3 pieces, and now it's time to start sewing. The first thing that I'm going to do is take my cap side, which is this long piece here, and I'm going to join it in the back right sides together. So I'm going to stitch with the 1/4 inch seam allowance that I have given you down the center back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and stitched up my seam with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and notice that I also did an overlock to seal in the raw edges. You should do this with either with an overlock or a zigzag stitch if you don't have an overlock machine, just to make sure that it doesn't fray with time. Your next step is to sew the center back of your headband. Take the part that has the notches and make sure that that's facing down, not at the top. And you're going to sew here only a 1/4 inch here, and then from the halfway point to the end. I've gone ahead and done that, and I just want to show you what I meant. So this is a 1/4 inch only at the top, and I backstitched both at the beginning and at the end of my seam. Even though it almost seems that there's no point because it's so little, you do want to reinforce this because this is the opening through which your ribbon will go in here. And then again, you start here in the middle of your strip and go to the end, and I backstitched both there and here. And I don't need to clean off this edge because it's going to be completely encased once we apply it to our side. So the next thing you're going to do is just press this open with your fingers, and I'm going to flip it so you can see what we've done. If you notice, there's a little opening there for your ribbon. You're going to take your machine and stitch here along this opening to make sure that the sides don't lift. All right, so here's what it looks like. I started there at the end, went up, turned the corner, and went back down. And that secures and it creates a bit of a buttonhole without actually having to do a buttonhole. The ribbon that I'm using is a 1-inch grosgrain ribbon. If you are going to use something wider or narrower, then you will have to adjust this pattern piece accordingly, or at the very least adjust the opening to accommodate your ribbon. At this point, we're going to join the two pieces that we've sewn thus far. These are my back seams that we've stitched together, and we're going to do this right side facing up. The right side of the fabric is facing up. This is the center front of my side. The curve is at the top. Find the straight edge center front and the notch at the center front of your headband. Put them right side facing up. So it's like this. The side is on the outside. The headband is on the inside. And we're going to line them up. Okay, so again, this is your side and the headband is inside of it, lining up the center fronts. Now you can start stitching wherever you want. You can pin these together. You can start at the center back, which is how I like to do it. Since there's a seam there, I just line up my seams and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch all the way around, matching my side, center, the other side right there, and then going back to the center back. Okay, so now my two pieces are joined at the bottom with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You do not need to finish this edge because it's going to be hidden inside of the headband. What you want to do next is open up this seam and press your allowances towards your headband. Take an iron and go around the whole area and press it down towards your headband. At the same time, while you're at the ironing board, let's pretend that this is all ironed flat. You're going to take this bottom raw edge of your headband and you're going to turn it up about a 1/4 inch, which is the seam allowance that I gave you, and you're going to press that up as well. Be careful not to stretch it as you're pressing it, otherwise you're going to end up with a bit of a ruffle. It's going to be harder to stitch. So just press it carefully at a 1/4 inch and press all the way around it. I also wanted to show you what the buttonhole looks like. If you've done this right, you're going to see that there's an opening here at the bottom. When you go and press this up a 1/4 inch, we're going to stitch that up, and you're going to see now that there's going to be an opening there for your ribbons, and that's going to be on the outside of your cap. So if you did it wrong, that's going to be on the inside. You don't want that. You want it to be on the outside of your cap when we turn the headband right side up. So here's where we are so far. And for this next step, I'm going to use the pattern pieces to give you a better visual. We are going to turn up our headband halfway so that this fold matches with the seam that you have in place there. So we're going to go up and stitch covering that seam. So you're going to go right up to it a little bit, just a millimeter above it, and you're going to stitch that in place. But we're not going to do the entire headband. We're going to start at this notch at the bottom of our cap, which is about right here. And we're going to go towards the center back. So we're going to wrap around and continue until we find that notch again in the side. So my notch is right there. So I'm basically going to stitch the back part from this notch to this notch. I'm going to flip up, and here I'm going to make sure to match my center back seams, again just covering the stitch line that you already had in place there. Now it's time to insert our ribbon. I backstitched both there and there, and we're going to insert it through the center back. Like I mentioned before, I'm using grosgrain ribbon, and I am going to cut two pieces that are 21 inches long each. I like to cut them at an angle at the end. So this is my 21-inch mark. I'll take my scissors and I'm basically going to cut at a 45-degree angle or so. And I will cut 2 of them. Now the thing with these ribbons is that if you leave the edges like this, they will fray, and you don't want that. So I actually have a little lighter that I use to just quickly pass a couple times at the end of the ribbon, and this will seal it so that it doesn't fray. You want to grab a safety pin, and you want to go in to the ribbon, maybe a 1/2 inch into it. You don't want it too close to the edge so it doesn't slip off. Seal that in, and you're going to go in through your buttonhole and slip that grosgrain ribbon in there. So there it is. I'm going to take it out. You don't want to pull too hard because then this will fray. So don't pull too forcefully as you're threading it. So now I'm going to retract the ribbon until there's only about a 1/2 inch or so left, maybe 3/4 of an inch, so about that. So that's where my seam ended. And I don't want to have too little because I'm about to do a straight stitch down here to secure the ribbon in place. And if it's too far in, it might actually fray with time. You see, it's already happening just by having cut it. So you want to give it enough allowance here so that doesn't happen with time. I'm going to do it on this side, and I'm also going to do it on this side. So I'm going to feed this one now so I can stitch them both at the same time once I'm done. And it comes out on the other side, just like the other one. I pull, remove the safety pin, and again, see how it's doesn't like to be pulled. So I'm going to retract. If you feel more confident, you can do a whole inch. Make sure your ribbon is nice and flat in there. The seam allowance can get caught a little bit, so make sure that you feel it and straighten it. I'm going to hide it under there, which is where it wants to be from what I can feel in here. I'll pull it out a little more. There. So at this point, I'm going to right where I finish my seam before I'm going to do a straight stitch. I'm going to do a straight stitch down to secure the ribbon, and then at the same time I'm going to go ahead and now seal the rest of my headband just like I did the back. I'm going to seal the front. Now that your cap side is done, it's time to attach it to your cap top. Remember, we have a notch at the center front and 3 at center back. So what I like to do is I start at center front, which is this for my cap side, and I match them right sides together. So that's my notch. I line them up and I start sewing, matching my notches as I go. So there's another one there, and then we're going to find one in the basically in the side, and then in the center back of the 3 notches. Of course, you're going to match the middle one to your center back. Okay, so there, and you're going to keep going matching all the notches, and if everything was done correctly, you will end up at center front again. And you don't need to backstitch. As long as you overlap the 2, the beginning and the end, you're good to go. Once we stitch that, I'm also going to finish that edge just like I did my center back for my side. I'm going to finish it with an overlock because that too will be exposed. So now your cap is stitched all together, and I've overlocked the seams, or you can zigzag them if that's all you have available. What's left to do is to press the seams towards your side, away from the cap top, and to top stitch very close to your seam to keep that in place. Here's a close-up of the top stitch right along the edge of the side. This is your finished cap. Now when you go to wear it, make sure that you tie your ribbons first, that you cross them so that you don't put undue strain on this opening. Meaning if you go like this to try to pull it, it's going to put a strain there that you don't want. So go ahead and tie it once. Doesn't even have to be too tight. There you go. And then you can start pulling like so. If you happen to like this video and want to see more, please be sure to subscribe and hit the notification button so that you are notified, of course, when a new video posts. Also, that is the best way for me to know that my videos are being watched, that there is interest, and that I should keep going. And don't forget to leave ideas in the comment sections for future videos based on what you are looking for. Thank you for watching and see you next time.